What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends, episode number 24, hitting your screens as we have wrapped up the summer regular season in the LCS Challengers League, and the qualifier group stages are about to begin after we finished off our second Swiss round of the split. Here to talk all about it, of course, your usual co-host. I am Grapes. I'm joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
Grapes, I'm doing good. You know, my work tonight was a little exhausting. I work at a restaurant, for those that don't know. And it was a little tiring, but hey, Salty Runback always gets the people going, so I'm very excited.
Yeah, we've had some pretty fun episodes. We got the Young interview, which again did pretty well. Had our last one, which was pretty cool. We got to gauge the expectations of the NACL teams, and now maybe we have a little bit more information as we go into the playoffs, where we're going to be filling out our full playoff brackets in our part 2. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Also, I think we can reveal this now, Hawk. We're both going to the LCS Summer Finals, so if anyone who's watching wants to pull up and say hello, we'll probably film some content of some sort. If you want to do any specific content or anything around that, let us know on our socials. It'll be a good time.
I know we're still cooking, but I mean, Grapes and Hawk at LCS is gonna be iconic, absolutely iconic, and we're gonna find some fun stuff to do. I think whatever that may be, but there will be entertainment hitting your screens from that event.
In some capacity. Maybe just a podcast episode. Maybe we grab some players, do some interviews. I don't really know just yet, but if you have any ideas, once again, let us know. We can hop into our headline talk if you are all ready to get things rolling, because we have the regular season for the NACL coming to a close, and a little bit different than maybe people were expecting after the first round robin. Maryville had a pretty hot start. They're now barely squeaking in at 8th. Team Liquid had a bit of not a stumble, but maybe a coming back down to earth, where they were actually very close in the standings to FlyQuest, who's sitting at 2nd, and Disguise right behind them at 3rd. And things really getting a bit interesting as we head into the playoffs, where the top 8 teams have made it in.
Sorry, before you continue, I just think it speaks volumes to the fact that Team Liquid being relatively close to second place is still 3 games ahead, just based on how the split has gone. I had to interject with that. I think that is hilarious, but says something in and of itself right there.
I actually thought it was a little bit closer, but yeah, it is actually 3 games, 27-9. Oh my goodness.
Pretty good.
If you look at actually the overall second round robin standings, I think FlyQuest actually had a better record, which is something that we can get into a little bit as we talk about this first topic. How many NACL teams do you think are kind of in this top echelon at this point? Because after Team Liquid, kind of goes in order a little bit more. But I feel like there's a lot of different teams that could have a really deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the standings right here as well. And I think there's quite a few teams that had really good showings to split, and we talked about this all the way back, in week 2 of NACL, how it felt like there was a lot of parity in the league this split. I mean, when you look at the regular season standings, nobody had less than 10 wins, which is pretty damn good, I think, just to start out with. And there's a huge middle soup. Yes, Team Liquid, they were definitely one step ahead. My answer for this is going to be 5. I think there are 5 teams, the top half, Wildcard, Cincinnati Fear, Disguise, FlyQuest Challengers, and TLC, that I consider to be this top pack. Now, if we want to get really technical, think Team Liquid does have a bit of an island on their own as the top dog. But Graves, I don't know how you're feeling, because I know what Evil Geniuses and AoE did kind of ramp into the split. Both of them tied for 6th place right now. Are you on the same page as me?
So one of the arguments that you could say is that there's the pack at the top is just one, and that's Team Liquid. I think if you asked me this question at the end of the first round robin, I would definitely have said that. But at this point, it's either 4 or 5 in my opinion, because I think my 5th team, call me crazy, I think Evil Geniuses could be my 5th team as well, because they have looked really good with this new roster substitution in for Seoul, albeit their record this week was not as good as some other teams. They
still got 2-0 by TLC. What can you do about that? Or no, they split with them. Sorry,
no, they went 2-4, but they played against the other kind of top teams. They played against Wildcard, Team Liquid, and Disguise. So Honestly, like I think Evil Geniuses is playing well. They could have like a pretty sneaky run in the playoffs, in my opinion. But in my eyes, it's actually 4 because wildcard they went 1-5 this week. They kind of have hit some sort of wall towards the end of the season, kind of like we saw in the spring split. They're actually 19-17 now, which is just barely over 500. And so I think we have to give it to TL, FlyQuest, Disguised, and Cincinnati Fear. Hawk,
Yeah.
Cincinnati Fear and FlyQuest. Remember, 2 teams that I picked in my Salt Street bets were the first 2 teams to go 6-0 this week in NACL all season long. What do you think of that?
Don't remind me about Salt Street Bets because I've not had the chance to tweet this yet because I was working tonight. But LOL Esports images that precede unfortunate events is me betting on Team Fish Taco. Okay, Maryville, I'm still holding out some hope. Now they've looked pretty fucking terrible, to be blunt, recently, but they are in it, which means that if there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, I feel like as far as the top 5 is concerned, so I can change the subject away from the fact that I'm going to get absolutely rinsed in Salt Street Bets for the second consecutive split. As far as the top 5 is concerned, the reason why I think I would include Wildcard, I'm definitely with you. Wildcard, they're having a weird taper off, similar to last split. They definitely were not cooking shit this week. I know Al Battery tweeted like, "What are they cooking?"
It was something.
Yeah, they were not cooking. But I feel like Wildcard's just always one of those teams that can always beat anybody depending on the day, and I think that is why I would consider them still in that top 5, even if they are very high variance in that way.
I feel like there also is kind of the sense that anybody can beat anybody as well, which
that's also true. Yeah,
I could make that argument for wildcard. I feel like I could also make that argument for any of the other teams that are also in the playoffs. So
yeah,
that's kind of where my.
But wildcard, they're extra volatile. So
that's true.
But you're right. You are right.
That means they could win. It also means they could lose, in my opinion. So we'll see how that goes. We can transition on to our second point, where we actually get into the nitty gritty of the playoff bracket. It is a double elimination 8-team bracket. We're gonna be again going through our predictions a little bit later on in our part 2. But Hawk, we do have our first round matchups slated. Team Liquid versus Maryville, FlyQuest Challengers versus Evil Geniuses Challengers, Disguised AoE, and Fear versus Wildcard. Which one of these sticks out to you the most?
Yeah, so first of all, these are like all bangers. Like TLC Maryville is maybe the only one that isn't as interesting, but Maryville split with Team Liquid this past round robin. So even that, like, who knows, man. The one I'm going to pick is going to be, I feel like at this point, starting to develop into something of a rivalry. It's got to be Fear against Wildcard, man. I mean, we were just talking about how they're 4th and 5th in the standings currently. And these teams just feels like every time they play each other, it's a war. And they were the top 2 performing amateur teams last split, provisional teams last split. Now this split, both middle of the pack standings. I want to see them throw down.
Yeah, you picked the pretty obvious answer, the closest in seeding.
Yeah,
I do think that they
sure, but there's storylines there too. It's not just because they're the closest in seeding. There's storylines.
So the interesting thing about this matchup actually is that in my head, going into week number 6, there's kind of like a top 3 and a bottom 3, and the top 3 were FlyQuest, Disguise, and Wildcard. And then the bottom 3 were EG, AoE, and Fear. And in my head, it was really unlikely that any of those teams would, jump into the other packs or not. But because of the way things ended up going, Fear went 6-0, Wildcard went 1-5. They actually ended up swapping in the standings, and I think Fear probably looked pretty favored overall. I mean, if we want to talk about this team once again, I feel like we talked about them a lot in spring, maybe not as much in summer, but Shochi, mid lane,
dude,
that guy.
Oh man,
like
Shochi is quiet, or maybe not so quietly, been one of the best mid laners this split.
Legitimately, an MVP conversation can be built around this player, and I don't think a lot of people on the broadcast have really been talking about him. They've been mentioning players like Keel, Faisal, and Keel, Fake God, and Masu kind of jump off right off the bat as like the 3 MVP candidates. I would throw Shochi right in there because the growth that he's had from last year, from even 2 years ago to now, actually insane. Can play so many different champions and has, I think, really been the best player on his team, which was not necessarily the same case that I would give in the spring.
I want to expand on the Shochi point real quick too, because I remember all the way back last spring on IMT AoE. I mean, Grapes, we we're pushing this narrative. I to take a little bit of credit, I was really trying to push this narrative of like Shoshi being the Swiss Army knife player. He can do anything and do it well. From when I saw him play 3 games in one day, and one of them he played Zillion, one of them he played Akali, and the other one he played
that day.
Rise. So he played a mage, an assassin, and a facilitator all in one day. And I thought that was crazy. And so I just love seeing Shochi not only continue to perform exceptionally well. I think the NACL system I think he's a success story from the NACL system so far as someone that came in with mixed expectations and has grown to clearly belong at this level. But not only that, he's maintained this identity that he built his name from. And I think that's incredibly exciting to see. So to expand on that Shoshi point, because I love that you bring that up, I think that's huge to emphasize. But yeah, Grapes, is there a what about you? Are you with me on the Fear wildcard hype train? The streaking amateur versus the falling off provisional that they're battling once again, or what?
It is cool how these are like the 2 teams from spring that were like really overperforming expectations, and now they actually get to meet against each other in the playoffs. I'm excited for that. My matchup is actually number 2 versus number 7 in EG versus FlyQuest.
I knew you were gonna pick that one because that was my other one.
I was on the broadcast, I think it was last week or the other day, when these 2 teams actually ended up facing off on, and it was a crazy series that kind of capped off Evil Genius's like real coming out party in a way, where they 2-0'd FlyQuest challengers. And it wasn't like FlyQuest was playing bad in any way. It was actually EG kind of just like outplaying them through side lanes. 30 really has opened up a lot for this team to play, a lot of different styles for this team to play with. King and Ryoma have both looked so much better since the substitution has come in. And don't get me wrong, like FlyQuest is still playing really, really well. I definitely am not sleeping on them at all to like go and win the whole thing. But this series went EG favored last time around, and I think it's gonna be very, very close in this best of 3 that these 2 teams play against each other.
No, I'm with you. I think that's an incredibly exciting series as long as EG can keep up form. I mean, FlyQuest has been one of the best teams all split. So even though they did just get 2-0'd, I have no doubt that they're capable of competing. But yeah, that's gonna be a good one. I'm with you there.
Yeah. Disguise versus AoE, we'll see. I think AoE kind of has been on a bit of a downward trajectory from when they were really hot, like weeks 3 and 4. Weeks 5 and 6 maybe haven't looked as good.
Yeah.
And Disguise, I think, has been turning it up as well. And then, TL's gonna probably beat
last time AoE and DSG met, they played each other close though, for what that's worth. So I think that one could be very interesting. But I do agree, Disguised probably favored. And then definitely TL favored over Maryville, obviously. But Maryville, there's a way. Like I don't think any of these are done and dusted, especially considering they're only best of 3s to start off. Like, you get hot one game, you're on a match point already. So
yeah, the best of 3s make things a little bit more interesting to watch. So that's gonna be a fun first round. I feel like all the games could be pretty competitive, which I'm excited about, except maybe the TL one. But we'll see. Maryville, they could do something. And as we go into our third topic, I want to tip our cap to Maryville for being probably the only team ever in any league to go on a 13-game losing streak and still end up making the playoffs. They finally pulled it together.
That many games.
It was 13.
That's
you can go back
really
and check.
bad.
They lost game number 2 against Team Liquid, I think, in their week number 4, and then they lost the rest of their games there. They went 0-6 in week 5, where I was the one saying Maryville could have a 6-0 week in my
you were the one that
So I kind of half won, or maybe I should lose more because they actually went 0-6.
Yeah, I think that cost you an extra $100 on Salt Street Bets for that.
But Maryville pulled through. They got a 2-0 victory over Team Fish Taco, as them and Supernova will be heading down to the promotion tournament. What do you think their odds are like here, Hawk? Because it's a very different case than what we saw in Spring Split, because these teams actually won games in the Challengers League.
Yeah, I feel like it really... I like their odds. I think both Taco and Supernova have proven to be pretty good teams. They have played... They both got 10 wins. We just talked about that, right? They've played good League of Legends. The problem is some of the qualifier teams are also looking very, very good. We've talked a lot about Mirage Alliance. Team Ambition, they've turned out to be, I don't want to say the surprise of the split so far, but I think it's safe to say at this point they are very clearly a contender. Winthrop, strong as ever. I do think, and now we were wrong about this last split. I think I would have these two teams favored over everybody except for still Mirage Alliance. Now that'll change if Mirage Alliance once again does not win this qualifier, but I choose to believe that Mirage Alliance could still win this qualifier, and be the favorite going into promotion, and them be the team that really can contend. Just I think especially Supernova and Team Fish Taco, to give them even more credit as well. Regardless of the names on their roster and how good you think they are, these teams did look a lot better over the course of the split. I think they showed more growth than some of our bottom tier provisional teams last split.
Yeah, 100%.
And so that also gives me confidence for them to actually be able to defend their spots.
If we want to talk about the qualifier teams for a second, I think on paper, Mirage Alliance's roster probably better than both Tacos and Supernovas. I don't know if that's a hot take. I think it's pretty fair.
We've
to
said
say.
that. Yeah, that. I mean, like on paper, dude, everyone's played in LCS except for Sudsy, and Sudsy's Sudsy. So it's like.
And Sudsy made the NACL last split.
Yeah.
So.
Like, I mean, it's just. Yeah, I don't think that's a hot take.
However, Mirage Alliance has not matched the level of play as consistently as we would have hoped for a team of these caliber of players. So, honestly, like, we still have to, in my head, like, I'm still kind of unsure about how things are going to actually end up turning out. The one thing I am pretty sure about, though, is that Team Fish Taco is going to be fine. They went 0-6 this week. However, very last minute, unfortunately, Lunacia was unable to play for the entire week for some unspecified reasons that we're not really sure about, and so they actually subbed in Sol for the week. And Sol's a great player and everything. We've talked a lot about him, but he made it pretty clear that like he was literally just doing this to help his friends out on that team, and that they did not have a lot of time to practice, and they were playing against literally Team Liquid challengers and then FlyQuest challengers back-to-back days, and then had that game against Maryville. So I'm not putting a ton of stock into this week's games, and if you go back, they were ahead of Supernova pretty significantly before that. So I think Taco is going to be fine. They have I think they have very solidly challenger level talent in Rose Sword and Spawn on their team. Lunacia has looked good. This team I think will make it through, and I'm pretty confident about that. Supernova, I'm not so sure about though, and don't get me wrong, I think a lot of the players on Supernova have had a ton of growth. We've typed up music this entire split, but they're really their best win condition is through topside, and I don't think Sketch and Trevor really have had as good of a split as people who were watching qualifiers or NACLQ last year would have really remembered, and so that is where I'm kind of a little bit unsure about. I think Supernova might have a bit of a tougher time.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think the big thing for me with Supernova and promotion in general is going to be, I think this is actually going to be the biggest test so far of, is music actually that fucking good? Because, I mean, like, we've talked a lot about music ever since Rock Bottom, and he had a great split here in NACL. But I think he's the only one on Supernova that, on paper, to me, would be better than his opposition, if that makes sense, in the promotion tournament. And so, Quacker has also, by the way, I think he's been a stud this split, has been a standout performer that maybe wasn't too expected. I think a lot of people were surprised by the Quacker pickup by Supernova. He's been very good. I'm definitely with you. That top side is the big win condition. But, we've talked a lot about how strong top lane is in the qualifiers. And I really think, there's going to be so much on Music's shoulders. Can you get your team over the hump? And maybe you can. But I think last split did definitely prove that there's not as big of a gap between the qualifiers and the main show, if you will, as we really thought. So it's just going to come down to I honestly wouldn't even go as far to say that I don't think Team Fish Taco is safe. But that's just because I don't think they're that much better than Supernova. I think they are better, but I don't think they're that much better. And like I said, I think the gap is close, so it just comes down to the performance on the day,
I would feel stronger about our challenge level teams in the promotion tournament if they actually were the teams that got promoted into the league and not just kind of some amalgamation of other people that weren't part of the promotion team. That just kind of is maybe me standing on my soapbox for a little bit, but it is
No,
weird
I'm
kind of
definitely with
see
you.
these
Like
teams come
half
back.
these players we've not actually seen. We've not seen these groups of 5 against the the qualifiers at all. Quacker has literally not played against any qualifier teams except for no. Quacker's not. He maybe who did he play against in
He played
promotion?
against like the teams in the promotion tournament. That's it.
Yeah. So like that just goes to show like I mean it's really hard to say.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of a long distance away. The interesting thing that I'm gonna have my mind on is that this is gonna be the last games that Taco and Supernova play until like late August. So that's like over 6 weeks of kind of just doing nothing. So we'll see how that actually ends up working
Yeah.
out, and maybe
That's a good
that
point.
gives the edge for our qualifier teams. I think we can transition over to the qualifiers right now, as we still have 2 topics left to go before we get into our playoff bracket. As the Open Qualifier Swiss format actually ended up going through once again, and for the second straight time, the committee got 15 of the 16 seeds into the group stage. Now, of course, there is always this conversation of, did they actually deserve it, or does the Swiss format kind of favor these teams a little bit too much? As you have the higher seed, you get the easier road throughout the tournament. Hawk, what are your thoughts on this as somebody on the committee?
Yeah. The way I phrased this question as well, making us look good, because I like to think I'm pretty gigabrain. That's part of the brand, right? But I mean, the answer to this question, I think, in seriousness though, is yes and yes. I think the committee has done a really good job this year. By and large, I think we've seeded the teams very, very well, and I think we've seeded the teams very fairly. Because here's the thing about the committee: is obviously we can never be perfect. We can't get everything right, and we're gonna all have our biases as well. But there's got to be a way to seed the teams, and this is so much better than what we had in 2022 for the large majority of it, when it was based on like solo queue rankings and like, blah 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 blah. I think having people that are passionate about the space see the teams and taking the aggregate of that is just the best way to do it. And I know it's tough, like for players that haven't had qualifier results, they get seeded lower, and then that in turn makes it harder to have qualifier results. But there's a lot of the same players that have also shown up in a lot of qualifiers and not been able to do it, right? So, like, it's I think the committee does a really good job, and I know I'm biased, but that's what I believe. However, to give the some credit as well, I do think the format is a bit flawed. I do think it definitely does favor higher seeds, but with that being said, I do think the seeding is very fair. Does that I said so many words to not say very much, but I hope that made sense.
I think you're right in the fact that this system definitely works best if there's a very clear understanding of like where the teams deserve to be seated. And I think actually a large reason for the committee's success this year compared to maybe some lack of success in other years where we had 3 or 4, even 5 teams make it in that were on the outside looking in going into Swiss is the fact that because there's like less talent overall kind of circulating and the league feels a little bit more top heavy, it's easier to kind of set that bar at a point where it's like, okay, these are teams that I think I'd feel confident about, like, doing well in the qualifiers, and here's some teams that I feel not as well about. And in when I was doing my seeding, I saw maybe like 17 or 18, maybe 19 different teams that I thought had like actually like a sub an above like 30% chance of making it in. And so I think that has made it easier a little bit. I will say there definitely are things in my head that can be solved pretty easily. The first of which is differentiating between finishing 3-2 after going 2-2, or going 3-2 after going 3-1. Because if you lose the 3-1 game, I think you should be seated higher than if you win the 2-2 game to get in. Does that make sense?
Yes. I definitely think reseeding everybody after the open qualifier is like an absolute must, which is what you're getting at, right? Like
in a way, but for example, if a team like Winthrop like absolutely dropped the ball and went 0-2, they had to like do the miracle run, the 0-2 into 3-2, they would still be seated like 7th because
right, because they were
seed
seeded 3
teams
overall.
Yeah, and so in my situation, they'd be seated 12th instead because they go from 2-2 to 3-2, so that puts
Right.
them at a different tier than
Yeah.
if you get to 3-1, you have the chance of going 4-1. I think that should be rewarded a little bit more.
Yeah,
In the same case as if you lose the 4-0 game, you should be the number 2 seed immediately.
Right, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I'm with you. I definitely think that there's a huge that's exactly what I agree with. There needs to be some sort of reseeding before group stage. Like the open qualifier seeding should just be for the open qualifiers. It shouldn't be for the whole tournament. Because that is where
Would you want the committee to seed the teams again after?
That could be interesting. Or either the committee sees the teams again, or there's just some sort of objective measure based on, as you said, like what your path was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because definitely when we get into group stage, you can start to see some of the disparities between like where teams were seated individually. Because I think the reason why it works for the open qualifiers as well, and there's proof a little bit that the committee works. Like, you know, people are always like, oh, like the format's so flawed because if you're seated 32nd, like you're fucked. You're always playing the hardest team, which is true. You are kind of fucked if you're seated 32nd. Like I won't sugarcoat it. But, you know, we used to have teams like DK Crew and stuff. And I know some people say like, oh, you know, like it's so hard to be a DK Crew, but that's because DK Crew wouldn't be seated 32 in the current format, right? Like the DK Crews are getting seated in a place where they make it. So if a team was really that good, like they would prove it and get seated higher next tournament or make it. So that's as far as open qualifier seating. I think it works because the biggest thing is like splitting hairs over those, like, you know, whether or not they're 10th or 12th doesn't really matter. Like what really matters is like, are you 1st through 8 through 12? Like it's those tiers, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it gets into trouble with the group stage though, because those tiers don't apply to group stage, right? Because it's 1st, then 2nd through, what is it, 5th?
2nd through 6th, and then 7th through 16.
Right. It gets weird when we have the group stage. So there needs to be some sort of system there, I think.
I like the topic. I like the point you brought up about, you know, just get ahead, just like, you know, prove yourself little by little and you'll eventually make it. And I would point my eyes towards a team like Return of the Middlesticks.
Shut up, fucking Middlesticks. They're the upset team, by the way.
Third or fourth OQ trying to get in. There were definitely times where they tried to get in and actually just didn't even make it to the Swiss format at all.
Did not make it to the Swiss.
And
yep, in OQ1 of spring.
Yeah, and they kept trying. People have gotten, you know, better perspectives of them as they've gotten more and more time on stage, and now they're actually in. They made it 3-2 with a win over Blue Otter. So that is a big dub for that team and shows that, you know, while the system isn't great, if you just commit yourself to it and allow for your success to kind of shine through, it eventually, you eventually do gain that pedigree.
Definitely. Yeah, I think Middlesticks is a great example. Like, literally, we're not even picked in the top 32 for Open Qualifier 1 in spring. They were seated like 30th in the second Open Qualifier. Last Open Qualifier, they were seated again like lower 20s. This Open Qualifier, I think they were like 18 or something like that. So they've been moving their way up as they've performed. So yeah, that's a great point.
All right, we can move on to our last topic of the day, which is going to preview the group stage for the NACLQ, which kicks off this weekend. 16 teams seeded into 4 groups, as we said. Hawk, we both have like the groups available to us right now. We're not going to read it out; it takes a little bit too long. But basically, speaking of seeding, I want you to pick one team that is really happy with the way that their group actually ended up shaping out.
Yeah. So the groups are pretty spicy. Excuse me. I think the team, just to be straight up, that's really happy about the way that their seeding shook out is going to be Team Ambition. I think they're in a group with Team Coachify, Keelix's Grandpa Gamers, and Teamless Revenge. I know it's basic to choose the second seed as the one that likes it, but I just feel like as far as all the top 4 teams, I just think they got the easiest group to top, and that is pretty important when we're looking at these top 4 to carry the torch into promotion. Grapes, I'll toss it over to you. I also have a like lower tier team that I could pick as well.
I'll pick a team kind of in the middle of things. I'll actually go Komodo in Group A. From the stuff that we saw out of Komodo, I think they actually looked pretty decent throughout, and I'm excited for them, and hopefully that they could put on a bit of a better performance than they did in the first OQ. I think Topo and Kitso is a good top side, and Burai looked okay. Doxa played much better this qualifier than he did throughout the entirety of qualifier number 1, which is, in my opinion, one of the best things that we could have seen out of this team. But they did end up actually dropping their last matchup, if I'm not mistaken. I'm checking back on the match history to see who they lost to. They lost to CCG in round number 5, which is valid, but now they're up against Middlesticks, who is who is again like kind of the last team in, and also Gentle Hearts, who I think definitely looked weaker than what I remember them looking like when they were the Cheese Chasers. They made some substitutions to their mid jungle, and Cryer and Aldrin, at the moment, look like a better jungle duo than what they have right now in King Clueless and Cinna. I think that team looked lost at a bit at times. They had to play in a 2-2 game as a team that in my head was somebody who could make it into the promotion tournament, as we had in our Salt Street bets. And so if I'm Komodo, I feel like overall I'm coming off of a pretty solid Swiss round, even though my record is still 3-2. I'm happy with how things have shaped out, even though Mirage Alliance is here.
Yeah, very fair. I think Komodo does have a good shot. Komodo's roster is basically entirely different. You might have mentioned that, but I do think they have a good shot as well, due to all the reasons that you said, and I would be down to see them contend. I think they are a team that could, again, just like last qualifier, maybe like cause some trouble in quarterfinals for somebody if everything went right. And so they got to get there. So my lower tier team, though, and I know I talked this team up a lot last time, but my lower tier team that I think is going to like their group draw as well, Aporia. Despite going 3-2 in the open qualifier, which was a little worse than I was really hoping for, I think Group C is very escapable for any of these teams, really. Winthrop, obviously, very good. Of course, you're going to be with one of the top 4, no matter what group you're in. And then you've got Team E Turner and CB Gaming, who I think both these teams are very good, but neither of them are infallible. And so I think there is room for Aporia to sneak out. And I also think CB as well. Like, they might be kind of happy about this as well. So, and I think Aporia is a very good team, so I want to give them a shout. I feel like they could get out of Group C. They are one I've got on upset watch.
Yeah, Team E Turner kind of confuses me.
Yeah.
A lot. I don't really know what to make of this squad.
This is either the team that cashes in on your bet of like making top like finals or whatever as like a new team, or they losing groups. Like
Yeah. They went 4-1, which shout out to them. They defied some of our expectations. Vital in the top lane played pretty well the entire tournament, the entire 5 games, which is good to see from somebody who has had a couple of setbacks throughout his start to his career. But yeah, I think that group is pretty wide open. And I also think Group D may be a little wide open as well.
Group D is just a group of death, though. I wouldn't want to be there, but it's definitely wide open. All these teams are good.
Okay. I'm going to argue I'm actually happy for CCG here because Lit Esports did make a bit of a roster adjustment. Plux is coming in.
True.
Sajan and Chayev in a bot lane that has been playing together for like months now, and so maybe that takes them a little bit more time to adjust, even though they did go 4-1. And CCG actually looked pretty good. We had them as our 5 seed. They went 4-1, and got a victory over Komodo in that last game. I think that speaks volumes to what we can maybe expect out of them.
Yeah.
If I'm CCG, my goal is to actually finish first in this group. Try to capitalize on Lit. Maybe struggling to get back up after taking a punch.
Yeah, definitely a possibility.
All right. Well, I guess we went through all the groups then. It should be a fun time for that, as well as the NACL playoffs, which are going to be starting up next week as well. And speaking of, about to head on over to our part 2, where we go through our playoff brackets. Time for playoffs. We have our 8-team bracket set up a little bit differently than what we have seen in this Tier 2 space over the past couple of splits, because the league obviously looks a little bit different. But there's still opportunities to fill in playoff brackets nonetheless. Each of us have filled out our bracket. I have not seen Hawks. Hawk, you saw mine just as you were setting up a little bit, but should be a good time either way. I feel like a lot could kind of change throughout each of our decisions that we made.
Yeah, a lot definitely could change. Look, it's not the NACL madness with 16 teams anymore, but we've still got 8 to go through. This is going to be a bloodbath one way or another, and especially when we've talked so much about the parity in the Challengers League, even just 20 minutes ago in this episode. Like, there's going to be a lot going on, and this is going to be very difficult to predict. So, I mean, Grapes, like, should we just dive in and start talking about the carnage or what?
I mean, I guess so. So how do we want to do this? We show each other's we each go through our bracket, and then you kind of give us like a summary about like the different decisions that you made, and then we'll break it down a little bit more after that.
Yeah, I feel like that works. We'll play it by ear, but here I'll pull mine up. I'll talk about it a little bit, and then we can go from there. Ignore the fact that it says Grapes' NACL playoff bracket.
Oh, did you not change the format?
I did not change it. So this is my bracket. It just says it's Grapes', but this is mine. And you'll notice a few things about it. Of course, in those hype first round matches that we highlighted earlier, I had both Wildcard and FlyQuest challengers winning it. Now, I did have an upset in the another upset in the first round though. I have AoE taking down Disguise. Reason being, I did this last split as well for a team that I liked. I was like, this team is gonna lose in the first round, and then they're gonna have a miracle run. Like they need to be like a caged animal to succeed. That's gonna be Disguised this split. They're gonna lose. They're gonna choke horribly, and then they're still gonna make top 3 anyway. That's the angle for Disguised right there. You can see them following the Team Liquid challengers in the lower bracket. I also wanted to emphasize
Wildcard upsetting.
What was that?
You also have an upset for Wildcard as well in that run.
Yeah, I do have Wildcard winning out. You'll also notice that I have I think the big one, Team Liquid Challengers and FlyQuest. I want to emphasize how close I think these two teams are. So I've actually got FlyQuest knocking Team Liquid Challengers down to then, unfortunately, dispose of Disguised and then win the whole thing. I do think Team Liquid's the best team, but I think FlyQuest is capable of challenging them, among other teams as well. But the way the bracket is, I think FlyQuest definitely has a good chance. I think FlyQuest does have a good road moving forward. Other things, Wildcard, after going to the lower bracket, they're going to lose to Maryville, demonstrating their variance.
So you also have Fear getting 0-2.
I do have Fear getting 0-2. Look, I had to do it to somebody. That's really all I have to say about that. I had to do it to somebody. I felt pretty terrible about Fear and Evil Geniuses Challengers being the two teams that don't win a series. Like, that kind of feels like shit after watching the last week of Challengers League. But, look, last time in Salt Street Bets, I bought high, and that didn't work for me. These are two teams that if I invested in them, I'd be buying high. So instead, I'm going to prey on their downfall, Grapes. And I'm buying low on Maryville.
You're just trying to get your Salt Street Bets up here with your prediction. You just have Maryville making top 4 to make sure that you get as many points as possible. That's what this really is.
I mean, what do I have them in top 4? I do have them in top 4. Yeah. I'm hedging my bets on Salt, dude. After the travesty that was Team Fish Taco, I had to go all in. But look, think about it. I'm buying low on Maryville now. So basic economics would say I'm doing a good thing by doubling down here. Don't fact check that.
Yes, but they did just lose 13 games in a row, and they beat a team that had an emergency sub in to save their season.
Let it be known that no team beats Maryville 14 games in a row. It starts now, Grapes. It starts.
Oh my gosh.
Now, and that game, that match against Team Liquid, 2-1. They're taking a game.
I would give you kind of the benefit of the doubt of having Maryville, maybe pull off a series win against somebody. I would not put it against Fear. Fear's been so hot so recently.
Would you feel better if I had them beating? Well, but they have the way the bracket is. They'd have to beat both Wildcard and Fear to make top 4 anyway.
Well, actually, the way that I think, yeah.
Or kind
difference,
of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, unless Team Liquid fucks up, but they're not.
Yeah.
I think it's weird that the bracket isn't reshuffled amongst.
It is. No, it is reshuffled. I think you actually placed the team.
Did I do it wrong?
I think you placed the teams in the wrong place. Yeah, I think you put Wildcard and AoE in the wrong place, and so they would have been swapped.
Oh no! Okay, wait. All right, so it would be it'd be Maryville against AoE, and then Disguise against Wildcard. I'm keeping my results the same. So the result. You
still have Maryville beating AoE.
I still would have Maryville.
I think that's actually a little more fair. And Fear versus DSG, that would be kind of an interesting.
That would be. No, but it would be Wildcard against DSG because I fear getting knocked out by Maryville.
Oh, okay. You know what? I think you're just huffing the Maryville pen a little bit. It's fair. You had the money invested in them, so I understand.
Look, I can't.
While you're doubling down a
I
little
picked.
bit,
I picked a
but
bunch of chalk with like one of my Salt Street bets. I can't. I felt weird about it. I can't do chalk anymore. Like I have to just pick weird shit just for content.
you say you're picking weird shit, but you have TL versus FlyQuest in the finals and the winners finals. So, who's to say?
I gotta find my upsets where I can. That's what I gotta. That's what I have to say about that. Here's my explanation. Look, Maryville. I casted them in the highlight of my career on the LCS stage, Grapes. They're my ride or dies now, so I gotta invest.
Oh, valid. I respect that 100%. Shout out to Maryville.
Shout out to Maryville.
Yeah, maybe it's summer vacation for them, and so they're not practicing as much. Do you think that has anything to do with this kind of slide that they're under?
I hope not. I mean, I feel, come on, it's summer vacation. What are you doing? Touching grass? You should be inside grinding League of Legends, Maryville. Like, you don't have classes to worry about. Get on those scrims. No, that's a good question. I don't know. I would guess that's probably not the case, knowing these gamers, but you never know.
Yeah. Okay. Pretty interesting bracket. I do think it's interesting how we get to the top 4 very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Like after just like 2 rounds, we're just immediately in the top 4.
I mean,
which I guess makes
you
sense.
straight up
we're
are
winning,
losing like
so.
half the teams. Like it doesn't. You know, NACL was not half the size this split, but this playoffs is half the size, which it kind of is sinking in when you look at this bracket.
All right. Well, I guess we can move on. I mean, I don't know. Do you have anything else to say about anything else that's in your bracket, or any main takeaways generally from your teams? Thoughts on Team Liquid?
Disguise never wins a series 2-0. Every single one is a 1-2, and they don't 0-2 either. Every single one is a 1-2 or a 2-1. That's a prediction.
Or 3-2. Did they all go 5 games?
Oh yeah.
The best of 5s.
Now they 3-1 Maryville. And then they get 1-3 by. So there's always a 1. There's always a 1 in the losers column when DSG plays. That's my premonition there.
They can never go perfect. Yeah.
Some other premonitions. Team Liquid. Okay. This is another. I'm just gonna like rattle off like BS premonitions. Team Liquid. They all always zeros in the loss column.
You're just making up numbers.
It's either a sweep or not a sweep, or they get swept.
I'm very excited to watch TL FlyQuest. I really hope that series actually ends.
No, in all seriousness, for TL, I think TL. I think they're gonna. I already said they're gonna 2-1 Maryville. I think they're gonna 2-0 Wildcard. And then I think their series against FlyQuest are very intense. And then I already mentioned my 3-1 prediction against TSG. I also think, I don't know what else is like interesting here. Evil Geniuses is not gonna win a game. They're gonna, after getting all of your Grapes, after you finally like were willing to like get over
as soon as I put any hope, they just start losing.
Like you finally like gotten over it, you know, after this like, you know, terrible thing that's been happening all season. You're starting to believe again. You're ready for a relationship again, and then they're gonna break your heart immediately and go 0-4.
You know,
how funny would that be? Like that would.
I don't like the sound of that, especially we can go over to my bracket because I have been doing okay. A little bit better than you, I guess.
Do. All right. But that's the actual Grapes' bracket.
I guess we could go through this matchup by matchup. I do think, first of all, that overall, as we said, it is like a top 4 oriented league. And so I am going to have all 4 of my teams' highest seeds advancing to start off. In the lower bracket, though, it's Maryville versus Wildcard in what I have. And we
both have Maryville beating Wildcard. Or, well, mine's not actually happening, but we both think that would happen.
So my theory right now, on top of some other things, is that Maryville versus Wildcard, these are the 2 teams that like do completely random shit every time. They were both in like our question mark tier when we were watching when we put them in our tier list.
We did create tiers of their own. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And so when they play against each other, the opposite of what people are expecting is going to happen. So since people would maybe expect Wildcard to win, Maryville's going to win. So that's kind of what I have here. I think Maryville have played wildcard pretty competitively, if I'm not mistaken, over at least one of the times that they ended up facing off. And also wildcard
I believe
has kind of
Maryville
been on
2-0'd
kind of that
wild card
down.
in the second round robin in week 4, if I'm not wrong about that.
They did not 2-0 anybody in the
Oh,
in the
right.
second
They were
round robin,
garbage
so
in
it
the
would have had
second
to
round
be
robin,
the
weren't they?
it would have had to be the first. And I
Yeah.
feel like I
Okay.
do remember something like that, but
I think they 2-0'd
um,
them at some point this split, but I could be wrong.
But yeah, I do think while Maryville obviously has been on this downward trajectory, I think Wildcard has too. I actually think that these are the two weaker teams that we have in the playoffs, which again maybe a hot take, but I think EG and AOE is actually the more competitive one. I would have preferred to have both of them move on, but just the way that the bracket ends up working out, I do think that AOE, kind of slumping a little bit, and EG's on the rise, and with the skill of the players that they have, I think they may end up moving through. I think every single series from here on out is very competitive between these top 6 here. Or actually, except for FlyQuest versus Maryville. I think Maryville will get stomped right there.
Hey, Maryville 2-0'd them at one point, though. Just saying.
They did, but I don't think Lightning Strike twice here. I have TLC and Disguise moving on here. So the general overview of my bracket is I think that Disguised has continued to scale throughout, and I think are really finally going to hit their stride fully come playoffs. Meech and Young, they've been these like kind of weak links. I think the meta suits them pretty well at this point. Meech got a pentakill a couple weeks ago. He's been popping off. Young had a really good week in week 6. He got to play Akali. He got to play some of the other champions.
Melee mids for Young, baby.
Looked really, really good. I'm very excited to see Disguise. They have this core of players. I got to talk to Golden Glue, and he's really confident about the upward trajectory that he thinks this team is on. So I think that they beat FlyQuest here. Again, even though I think FlyQuest is very, very solid. And I have TL going through here, and I actually do have Disguise beating Team Liquid in this best of 5 in what could be one of the better best of 5s that we see in the entire tournament. I think I have it like a 3-2 or something. So TL gets moved down to the lower bracket, where they will play against the winner of FlyQuest and Fear, who I have beating EGC, which I also think that's going to be a very close series. And I have Cincinnati Fear once again pulling through against FlyQuest challengers in the lower bracket. It was the best series of the entire spring playoffs. It's going to be a really competitive one once again, even with Faisal swapping over. There's something about Fear this split, man. I think Shochi, Perry, as that mid-jungle have grown so much, they're going to really show it against UG Spirax, who have kind of been the bar for a lot of challenger-level mid-jungle duos. And I'm very excited to watch that matchup. But I'm gonna go for Fear, and then kind of the rest of the way through, I have Fear running through Team Liquid as well, because why not?
Because why not? Hell yeah!
Because I wanted the two unaffiliated teams. So the first time ever, we have two unaffiliated teams in the finals in what kind of is this new era of challengers. And I'll have Disguise winning it all on the LCS stage.
I think Disguise winning the NACL, by the way, would be so amazing. Like, for the scene as a whole. I also want to point out the irony of back in our very first episode of Salty Runback not our very first one, before Summer Split, when we were doing our primer, we were like, is DSG the favorite? And I said yes, and you were like, no, it's probably Team Liquid. And now, in our playoff brackets, I have voted Team Liquid to win the whole thing, and you have voted Disguise. I think it's just funny how our opinions have flip-flopped that little bit. I do think Disguise could definitely win it all. I think they're competitive.
Yeah.
And how hype would that be? I mean, that would just be sick.
I think the biggest thing is that between like TL, FlyQuest, Disguised, and Fear, I think like they're all very, very close. If you look at I'm not entirely sure of the math, but I'm pretty sure all their second round robin records were very, very close to each other as being like the best in the league. And so, it wasn't really Team Liquid dominating the second round robin like we saw in the first. And now with this new roster, I think Harry is going to slot in fine. I don't think that's like the big deal. I think it's kind of just like the other teams catching up a little bit. And so, honestly, like any series like in this top 4 that I have set up, in my opinion, it could kind of go either way. I don't know if you think the same, but that's in my head.
I hope for the sake of my Salt Street bets, your bracket does not happen. Because you're right. I
do have Fly in top 4. I do have Fly like kind of not getting knocked out. So that's
true.
Against my Salt Street bets.
But Team Liquid being third would mean I lose everything and Fear and yeah. But you're right. I do think the top 4 is extremely competitive. I'm still not willing to buy Fear stock even at this moment. I wasn't
They
willing
went
to.
6-0.
I wasn't willing to. What I was about to say is I wasn't willing to last split, and they came in fourth. So, like for whatever reason, I'm just never quite ready to believe in this team, and they proved me wrong. So would be happy for Fear to prove me wrong. I think they definitely can be a top 4 team, and I think they definitely can contend against the best. Beating both FlyQuest and Team Liquid, that's maybe a bit of a stretch, but I like the spice. I just think it's going to be so competitive. I think all these teams are capable of beating each other, and I think that's a big story. Even though some of them obviously better than others, I think there's an angle here for every single series. It doesn't feel like it's a done deal.
And again, I don't think having TL not win in my bracket. I don't think that in my head that doesn't mean that like this team is bad. It just I don't know.
No,
I think
definitely
that
not.
there are other teams that are very, very competitive.
Yeah.
I think this team has probably improved on where they were at the start of Summer Split. There was some stat that like they have the same. I believe they have the same record through the regular season this split as the 2022 Summer Split Team Liquid Challengers or Team Liquid Academy did. That was a team with Armeo, Harry, Jan, and Ayla, and all four of them made it into the LCS over the 2023. So that is kind of the bar that they've set for themselves.
Team
and they
Liquid
matched it
has some
team.
insane pedigree in the Challengers / Academy space. So
yeah, so I don't know. I'm excited to get into the playoffs. Like this is, I feel like every Proving Grounds or NACL playoffs, we've always had this like situation where some of the games are not super interesting. I think any of these games could be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that Maryville, kind of as the outsider in the situation, being like 5 games behind the Evil Geniuses from between 7th and 8th, like pull together and put up a big show, because that would really be good for the league. And I think just having a super competitive playoffs would be very exciting to watch.
For the record, they're only 3 games behind in 8th place. They're, it's
only 3.
Yeah.
Oh, because they won 2 today. They have 13. Okay,
Yeah.
no, you're right.
But both the 3-game
both.
gap between 1st and 8th have really caught off Grapes today.
No. So going into today, EG had 16, Maryville had 11, and EG went 0-2 and Maryville went 2-0. So but before today, there's a 5-game separation. Now there's a 3-game separation. That is
3 games is still pretty rough, to be fair. But yeah, we'll have to see. I think the real story, Grapes, is at the LAN finals, someone should fly us out to LA to cover it. I think that needs to happen. I don't know who that would be, but if there's an angel investor out there that wants to bring Grapes and I to Los Angeles, yeah.
There's only one show in LA, and it would just be just having us come out there for fun.
Look, the content surrounding the scene, we'd get more views than Disguised Toast. I just lied to you, but
That is I don't think that's true at all. Toast would probably show up to the arena and do like
we could do a collab. Oh. How wild!
The
wild
two
would it
biggest content
be?
creators in Tier 2 coming together for an epic collaboration.
You would literally be like, "Who the fuck are you?"
Oh no! You saw the clip, right? Of
That's
Toast,
true.
Watching our podcast stream.
I did think it was
Toast,
really funny when Toast was like, "Great to see just 2 friends with microphones doing a podcast talking about the scene," and I'm like,
and then the next day, he saw me interviewing one of his players on the stream. So hey, you know what? It kind of is what it is.
There you go. That's smart. I thought that was so funny. That clip was good, because this is kind of a point, like any content's good content. Well, for the most part.
Anyway, I feel like we can make this a bit of a shorter part 2.
Yeah.
I'm super excited for the playoffs to get started. We have our playoffs brackets ready. I guess we could send this out on our socials in case other people want to fill this in.
Yeah, definitely we should. And I'll try to make some sort of fillable version that's easily shareable. Well, Grapes, by the way, shout out Grapes for making this beautiful graphic. I know I usually make a lot of them, but this looks amazing. I'll definitely find a way that we can share this and everything, or one of us will, and you'll be able to fill it out. Thanks everyone for listening. I know it's a bit of a shorter part 2, but
Hold on.
Oh.
Before we go, I know we have some extra time here, so I wanna open up a new conversation.
Okay.
Just very, very
Yeah. We got the time.
So not only did the NACL bracket come out, but also the promotion tournament bracket was released at least like yeah, so I think that that is going to become public information soon. The one thing I'm happy about is that even though it's a situation with now 6 teams instead of 8, I am happy that now all teams get double elimination, because I was worried that there's going to be some world where like the amateur the tier 3 teams were going to have to like be on like single elimination, like a play-in situation. Um, I think the bracket will be posted somewhere at some point, but that is not the case, and I'm happy about that. So
That's good. I'm glad. I'm actually curious to see what this looks like now. Now I'm
so
have.
I can
Do you want to
I
just
can
send
like
it to
kind of
me? Is that
I can send
illegal?
it to you. I can also kind of explain it here. It's the 4 qualifier teams will be playing against each other for round 1. So it'll be seed 1 versus seed 4, seed 2 versus seed 3. So then the winners of that go into double elimination, and the losers of that go into single elimination, and they play the bracket out from there. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Yeah, I think I think the way I thought it would literally be like qualifier 1 and 4 against qualifier 2 and 3, and then winner plays like NACL team, and then that's it. That would have been really lame though. So I'm kind of glad.
Yeah, there's a little more nuance there.
Little
Now there's double elim. It'll be good.
Okay, that is really good to hear. So then that does mean that it's also not. Wait, no, hang on. That means it would not be a win and in. Yeah, it definitely wouldn't be a win and in for like the top half of the bracket, right?
So the NACL teams need to win 2 series to get in. One best of 3, one best of 5. The qualifier teams need to win 3 series to get in. One
Right, because only
best of
2
3
teams
against each
get
other.
in.
One best of 3 against somebody else, and then one best of 5.
Right. Makes sense. Yeah, that sounds like a good format. That I actually am really happy with that. And that sounds like it gives everyone a fair shake. And I like how it directly pits the qualifier teams against each other one more time, because you always know that like seeding can get really weird when like again, I know I talk about native gaming with weird seeding a lot of the time, but like, depending on where you are in the bracket, like you can just get destroyed. In their case, they didn't make it at all, but like, we never got to see, for example, I don't think there was a team that was upset about never playing Tony top.
Yeah, native never played Tony. I don't
Yeah,
think.
no, native never played Tony top, right? So it's like, oh, what would have been, kind of situation. So like, for example, if Mirage Alliance never plays Winthrop, like it would be good to see potentially that kind of matchup hold merit in the bracket. So
Yeah. Sorry to go on this tangent, but
no, it's
just
an
to wrap
interesting
things up
conversation.
now.
It's good to start talking about promotion, because I do think, I mean, we're both really excited about this playoff bracket. Like these games are gonna be so fucking insane and competitive, man. But promotion is gonna be, I think, last split it was very tense in the sense that we had no idea what to expect. I think this split it's going to be very tense because there's a lot of good teams and only 2 spots.
Should be good. Remember, we'll be following this next week as well. I'm not entirely sure what our part 2 is going to look like next week, but after that, we'll get into some kind of regular cadence. We'll have some interviews with some players. We'll be breaking down the playoffs and the finals. We'll be getting ready for the promotion tournament as well. And then we'll see what kind of goes on from there, because the season's actually kind of a lot. It's over a lot quicker than I thought it was going to be, Hawk. We're like nearing the end of the road.
We're creeping up. I mean, yeah. Everything's getting close to being over, and we still got a lot of games left to play. So,
what a ride!
What a ride it has been. I mean, yeah, not just the split, the entire season. 2023 has been quite a roller coaster. I think for both of us, both as personalities in the scene, but also just in general. And it's been a good roller coaster. We've been having a fun ride, and it's not quite over yet. We still got a few more bunny hills to go over. And yeah, as far as part 2 is going forward, we're definitely going to try to get a few more friends on the show, maybe friends being players that we want to talk to or other people in the scene. We'll have some fun activities for you, and it's going to be great. But now with all that being said, I think that is the end of this episode. We're getting you out just about an hour. This part 2 ended up being about 25 minutes. Part 1 was about 35, so good timing. Just follow us on all of our socials, Salty Runback Pod, on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Spotify, and Apple Music. You can find our podcast there. Look on Twitter if you want the bracket. We'll try to get that out. probably sometime either tonight when we're recording or tomorrow afternoon being the day that this episode is released. Follow me and Grapes on Twitter at Hawkcast, at Speedy Grapes. We'd really appreciate it. I don't know. Are people using Threads? My Threads account is my personal Instagram right now, so.
I made a Threads account. I haven't posted on it yet.
Yeah,
you're free to find me and follow me.
Mine is my personal Instagram. I feel like I need to make a new Instagram for Threads, just because, not because like I care about my personal information. Like I'm not shy about my personal life. It's more that I don't want my home friends to suddenly look at Threads if they're using it and see esports. Just like
yeah, no, I had the same conversation. I had the same argument. That's my username is different.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Different username. Yeah. Fucks you up. Okay, well, don't follow me on Threads, but follow Graves on Threads, and maybe he'll tweet. Or he'll
I'll thread something. Yeah, is that what you say?
But you should follow us on Twitter. That's the important one. I guess that's Speedy Graves. Somethingrunbackpod@gmail.com. If you got any thoughts, let us know what LCS finals content you want to see. Let us know maybe any players you want to be on the show. If you're a player and you want to be on the show, both NACL or qualifiers, we'd love to chat. I know a couple players have reached out to us and we're in the works with them. Also, if you want to buy LCS finals tickets, reach out to me.
We're getting really parasocial at the end of this episode, aren't we?
Yeah. And that's going to be it. You can take it with a grain of salt if you think, I don't know, if you don't want LCS.
Take everything.
Take everything with a grain of salt. This episode was another late night fun vibes recording. And I've been Hawk. It's been Graves. Have a great night, y'all.